Hey YouTube, ready to continue your photographic journey from zero to hero? Now that you have understood the basic concept to master the photography exposure, in this video I propose to you to learn 3 essential concepts: the depth of field, the motion blur, and the color balance. So get ready, because today's program is If I ask you what is the first thing you need to think about when you take a picture, I know you're a smart one, you already seen the previous video, and you will answer the aperture or the shutter speed. Theoretically, no. What comes first is the white balance. And since we have not had the opportunity to approach that before, well, we will do it now. Our purpose is to correctly expose an image, and thus to control the quantity of the light. But for that, first of all, you have to know what kind of light you deal with. There are different types of light, and these different types of lights will have different characteristics in terms of color. If we want real and precise colors, we must calibrate our camera to the type of light according to the place we are. And for that, we do what we call the white balance. Light shines in different colors. This is what we call its spectral composition. In photography, we call it the color temperature. The color of the sunlight, for example, is different in the morning, at noon, or in the evening. If you take a white surface and you look at it in full sun, then you look at it indoor in artificial light, well, the white will be still white, in fact, because your eye is an extraordinary machine. Seriously, crazy thing. But your camera, it will see things differently when it comes to transcript colors, so you will have to calibrate it. This is the color temperature spectrum. In the warm colors, we will find artificial light sources like candles or tungsten light and incandescent bulb. Then we go little by little into daylight, and the more we are shaded or closer to the night, the more the color is cool. The temperature is measured in Kelvin degree. Oh yeah! Look at this picture. On average, the daytime color temperature is 5600 Kelvin. If I take this picture at the proper temperature, the white is really white, the colors are correct. But if I get wrong with my white balance and I expose as for an artificial light whose average is 3200, disaster. Same principle here, indoor, good color balance, bad color balance. Do you remember at the beginning I said that theoretically it's the first thing we should think about? Well, it's not totally true. Today, almost all cameras offer a high-performance automatic white balance mode, or presets. And then, if you shoot in RAW, you can easily fix the white balance during the editing. No worries, we will see what is a RAW file in another video. But if you shoot a video with your camera, in that case it's better to avoid the automatic mode. And then the white balance is very important. But in photography, in automatic, nah, you're pretty good in almost all situations. The motion blur is the blur that you will have on a picture due to the movement of your camera in relation to the shutter speed. The longer you expose your image, the more you will have blur due to the movement of the subject or the micro tremor of your hand holding the camera. But once again, nothing is good or bad. And the motion blur is not a satanic thing that must be avoided at all costs. It can even be a creative technique. All these examples are created by deliberately playing with the motion blur. The only motion blur that you want to avoid is the one you not control. And for that, there is a kind of mystical rule that was taught to all photographers back in time. If you do not have a tripod and you shoot handheld, to have a sharpened image, the shutter speed must be equal to the focal length. What is the focal length? You and I will see this in the next video dedicated to lenses, but roughly it's the value of the zoom used. If you shoot with a 50mm, then you should be at least at 1/50 of a second. At 100mm, 1/100 of a second. Pretty simple, right? Well, to be honest, it's not so true anymore today. Cameras have such good definition that we can easily spot the motion blur. So my way of doing it is to double the focal length. So for example, with a 50mm, I try to shoot at 1/100 of a second. With that, you're sure to have a sharpened image. The depth of field is that variable area of sharpness that allows you to detach a subject from the background. This beautiful blurry background that all photographers are in love. There are 3 methods to play on the depth of field, and I'm sure you already know one. Okay, quick reminder. We measure the aperture in f-stop. The smaller the number, the larger the aperture is. The larger the number, the narrower the opening of the iris. If I want to separate my subject from the foreground and the background, I will open my aperture and thus lower the f number to the minimum. As a result, I have more light coming in, but I also reduce the area of sharpness. We call that effect a shallow depth of field. On the other hand, if I increase the f number, the more my aperture will be closed, more space my sharpening zone will grow until all the elements of my image are clear. Another way to change the depth of field is the distance to your subject. The closer your subject is to the lens, and the more you take the focus at a short distance, the lower the depth of field. For example, that's why a macro lens, which will open at 2.8 and take an insect at a distance of 30 cm, will have a greater blur than other lens opening at 1.4, but will take a picture of a person at 10 meters. Come on, this focal thing again? And again, we will not go into the details, it's intended for the special video on the lenses. But roughly, the focal length is the number in millimeter that defines the field of view of your lens. 50mm, 100mm, you may have a lens that goes from 24mm to 105mm, which allow you to change focus and therefore zoom. This number will also have an impact on the depth of field. If your subject is placed at the same distance, the larger your angle of view, that is to say, the smaller the number, the larger the depth of field and therefore the less blur it will be. A 100mm will have a shallower depth of field than a 24mm. A telephoto lens, used in wildlife documentaries for example and allowing you to see far away, will also allow you to have a very shallow depth of field even at small aperture. Okay, a lot of info in this video. I'll let you watch it again to try to digest everything. Next time we'll talk about it several times. The tutorial entirely dedicated to lenses is coming very soon. You're not stupid? You know you don't want to miss it? Easy, just subscribe and especially ring the bell and I will send you a notification as soon as the video will be available. Like, comment, we meet again very soon. See you mate, keep on creating.